What's going on, guys? Murph's YT13 here, back again with another video where we interact and I get to know you guys a little bit better. I'm absolutely loving these. If you have any more ideas of subjects that you'd want to talk about or that you'd want to be involved in, that I can go through everybody's comments again. We've had another over 100 comments on this subject, which is, of course, what got us into wrestling. And I want to thank him. I've got it here. TJ Supertramp. It's his idea. And I promised him that I would give him a shout out. So thank you to TJ Supertramp for this subject idea. If you have more, let me know in the comments below and we can go through some and we can get to know each other, which is what this is all about. The subject today is something I wanted to do because I think it's a positive subject and I think it's something that we can all relate to. It's a story that we all have. It's something that we've all gone through, and that is what got us into pro wrestling and why we love pro wrestling. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Basically, for me, and it leads into the first one, I know I haven't read many of these, but one of them that I did see was actually from my brother, my real brother. You might remember him from Because We Said So. He said, Stone Cold versus McMahon with you. And that's exactly how I got into wrestling. Is my brother and I sort of at school, we were hearing about, or he was hearing about, I can't remember exactly how it went, but he was hearing about the WWF and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon. And basically through friends at school, and I could be wrong, he'll probably correct me, but this is my memory of it anyway. Through friends at school, they kept saying things like, you've got to check out Stone Cold, you've got to check out the WWF, because this is something that's unbelievable. And we're all impressionable teens, so we're thinking, okay, we'll check out this thing. And I distinctly remember, I don't remember what was happening, but I distinctly remember turning on the TV and seeing WWF Raw was on, and I remember seeing the first image that I ever saw was Stone Cold Steve Austin doing the BMF walk down to the ring. And I remember my dad saying, "Are you watching the wrestling?" And I said, "Yeah," because I had no idea what it was. And I pretty much didn't turn back from then. We were pretty much obsessed with it from that moment. So I had to go obviously with my brother's comment first. And I'm going to go through more of your guys of how you got into wrestling. Now, obviously I can't go through 100. I might decide to do a two-parter. We'll see how I'm going. But we're going to start, as I always do, from the top down with the most likes and all of that sort of thing, because generally, if people are liking the story, I'm going to like it as well. So we're going to start with Thomas the Player, and he says, okay, so I was 6 years old, and my dad bought WrestleMania 28, and little old me, not knowing what wrestling was, just decided to watch it. I was mind blown at what I was watching. Triple H versus Undertaker, Hell in a Cell. What a match to start. I mean, wow, not a wonder you're a fan. CM Punk versus Chris Jericho, amazing. And then The Rock versus John Cena. I love that WrestleMania. I'm still a wrestling fan to this day. Making my own universe videos like Murph's. Go check him out. Thomas the Player. My inspiration. Now, that's awesome, obviously, that I've inspired you to do something. But that WrestleMania, yeah. Dude, seriously, I think that WrestleMania is one of my favorites just for that Triple H Undertaker match. The Sweet Chin music into Pedigree, into the 2.9. It's pretty hard to beat. All right, Viper King. He says, I'm going to be honest. So I was going on vacation with my family. So when we got to the airport, they were playing an episode of Raw on the TV in the airport. Wow. While we were waiting for our plane. I remembered being so invested. I had no idea what I was watching. I was a little kid back then as well. But from that day, I started watching wrestling more and more, which is how I became a fan. And I love wrestling because it's so entertaining to watch. I get invested with the storylines and characters in the ring, and the in-ring action. It's so amazing to watch. Even if it's scripted, it's still so entertaining. I 100% agree. The thing with that people knock wrestling for is the exact reason why we love wrestling. It is pageantry. It is scripted. It is that over-the-top presentation. But so are movies and so are TV shows. So I've never understood that argument. But John Joyner, he says, sounds a bit weird, but WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2010 was the reason he got in. That's another reason why WWE will always have a video game. That is as good a reason as any to like wrestling. You see a cool looking video game with people jumping around and doing cool moves. Why wouldn't you want to check it out? Gabriel Borges. I really need to talk to Gabriel and really get this pronunciation down. He said, what got me into wrestling, what made me a hardcore wrestling fan, was watching Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. It was a beautiful match and an amazing story. And I reckon if you can, maybe that's a future video. Like, let's maybe pencil this one in tentatively. The match that you would show someone if you were trying to get them into wrestling. Maybe that's a new video. Gabriel, 100% agree. And if that's your first exposure to wrestling, I mean, you can't get off to a much better start than that. Mark Ruffalo, huh? I've never understood how to say that, but he always watches, big fan. I only really got into WWE when my brother started watching it a few years ago. Then I started playing the games and started to watch pay-per-views and eventually the shows. Became a fan, still a huge fan. I think a lot of people are like me, and it's like your older brother gets you into a lot of stuff. Not all of it good, but your older brother can sometimes get you into a lot of stuff, because they're trying things out for the first time. Devin Amos, he says, for me, it was the Shield versus Wyatt family feud. I got so invested. Man, you guys are so, like, I think we're all lucky in our own way to, like, for this to be your first exposure. Like, Shield Wyatt is, like, so good. And he says he was afraid of Wyatt before he learned how the business, etc. worked, and wasn't as creepy guy with a rocking chair. I can understand that if you were young and you're watching Bray Wyatt for the first time and you actually have no idea like what wrestling is or if this guy is even legit, that would be like, I remember being like kind of uneasy about Kane. I remember thinking like, oh, he's a little bit, but like I got in when I was sort of like, 15 or so, 16 or so. So it's sort of, it's sort of different because you're a little bit older. But Davy Costa, he says, that's easy. I was at home with my PS2 and an elder friend of mine bought for me, SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, and I loved it. So another one of the video game. Sucked at playing the game, but it was fun. After that, I searched on YouTube more WWE, and since then, wrestling became one of his favorite ways of entertainment. Wrestling for me is a great way to tell stories and merge these stories with sports. Makes me root, makes me mad. Yeah, makes me support, makes me mad. Root means a completely different thing in Australia, so that's funny to me, but maybe not to anyone else. Makes me mad and happy with the same intensity. It's truly magical. I 100% agree. I think in wrestling, you can get certain things out of wrestling that are like you can't get in any form of entertainment because they control the whole narrative. So it's like, that's what's so special about it is you can control what's going to happen. You can control the amount of emotion that's going to be in it. And it's just like a movie, but it's in real life. So it's a great point. Brady Grenier, WWE, says, pretty simple. I got invited to a WrestleMania party, and I had a really great time. Ever since then, I watched all WWE shows and AEW plus Murphs. I've got to say, Murphs is my favorite, though. Hey, you know what? Hey, they're your words. They're your words, but thank you. Rybread, 103, says, pretty young age. When my grandpa showed me a DVD, now you're going back, I think it was something like Undertaker 15-0, fell in love with wrestling then and there with the first 15 matches of The Undertaker's legendary streak. The Undertaker became my favorite wrestler and overall still remains at the top of my list. Hey, if you're going to start with The Undertaker, that's probably about as good as any as you could imagine. Timothy O'Connell, I remember it like it was yesterday. I started watching in 2012. It was John Cena versus, I believe, Tensai. Wow. Now we're getting into like that sketchy territory where it's like, okay, this is a weird time to get in. And then CM Punk came out the same night and I was hooked. Punk became my favorite wrestler. I thank God every day for having flipped through the channels and find an episode of Raw. Yep, absolutely. Saved my life, and it was in a deep, deep depression. Okay. I had no one, and a few years after I watched TNA, for the first episode I was watching was the one MVP showed up for the first time, and then my experience with pro wrestling goes on and on. So that's awesome to say, Timothy, because I think it is something that is quite often lost on a lot of people, is how important wrestling can be for people, particularly if you're going through a bad time. That's that's really cool that it's been that that source of joy for you, because I think everyone needs to find that. And the fact that you're a viewer of mine and you're part of this community, I hope you're feeling better, and I hope wrestling genuinely keeps giving that to you, because that's a beautiful thing. Easy Eddie 05 says, honestly, Murph, watching WWE 2K Universe modes got me back into wrestling. I'm so glad I stumbled upon your page. That's awesome to hear. I love hearing things like that. I love hearing that people keep their wrestling love alive by watching myself or watching other creators. It's really humbling to hear that. Thank you, man. That's really nice of you to say. All right. We have me. It's not me. It's me on the YouTubes. I was having a friend who loved of John Cena one day. Asked him why he was so into something clearly fake. Wow, you were that person. And he says that actually. Goes on to say that showed me Monday Night Raw and fell in love. I love the fact that you were the person that was saying, why would you ever watch something so fake? And now you love wrestling. I love the conversion there. That's awesome. Cowboy Casanova 187. Cowboy's always there in the comments, always there in the live chat. Love the support. He says, well, when I first got into wrestling, my dad introduced me to Bret Hart, and that's been my favorite wrestler ever since. I enjoyed his long feud with Shawn Michaels. I was never really a HBK fan at the time, because I always thought he was the Roman Reigns of that era. I also loved Bret Hart feud with Stone Cold. It was a classic, absolutely. And I was also never a Stone Cold fan. Well, we wouldn't get along, that's clear. Because as an athlete or a wrestler, hang on, I've gone too early there. He says, as an athlete or a wrestler, I felt that Austin was very overrated. But nevertheless, he was very entertaining and gives a great promo. When Bret left WWE for WCW, Ken Shamrock was my new favorite. I love Shamrock as well. Never got the push he truly deserved. Still my guy to this day, and I still watch him as a 50-year-old man on Impact Wrestling. Yeah, it's weird. I haven't seen any of his Impact stuff, but I'd imagine it'd be kind of weird. I loved the Ken Shamrock versus The Rock, early Rock days was awesome, but that's as good a reason to get in as any, man. Bret Hart, one of the greats, has caused a few controversies in terms of people not thinking he was that good, but I think he is. I think he's still one of the best. It's Oscar time. Great friend of the channel again. Believe he won the Jimmy Elgin. He created Jimmy Elgin. I've just twigged. I mean, I think I've read your comment a couple of times in this little series, but he said, match-long storytelling got me into it. I was hooked as a young kid watching The Undertaker streak matches. That's 2 people now that have said The Undertaker. I think you guys wouldn't be alone there either. Also, the larger-than-life stunts, particularly Jeff Hardy, absolutely. I found his high-flying moves to be amazing, and he was an instant favourite of mine. Jeff Hardy, I think, would have got a lot of people into wrestling. I remember when the Hardy Boys really first started exploding, it was unreal. That was when the tag team division was legitimately a main event act with the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys was man, that was peak WWE. PRXV 2599. Easy for you to say. When my family and I moved, we all had... so let me start again. When my family and I moved, all we had was basic cable at the time. It was Friday night, saw WWE Friday Night SmackDown on the TV, and I tuned in and saw Jeff Hardy doing a Swanton Bomb again. There's another Jeff Hardy fan. I think Jeff would have resonated with a lot of younger people, and I think that's why they rate him so highly and why everybody should rate him so highly. Emo Peter Parker. Interesting. I remember mine, and it was like yesterday. I was a young lad running around the house while my grandpa was watching the telly. My eyes were mesmerized by the sight of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Wow. I just sat down and got hooked ever since. Wow, that's awesome. That's probably as good a place to start as any. It's so interesting to see where everybody got their start. King of the Nerds. Honestly, the moments that can make you feel something. I still remember the main event of WrestleMania 20 when Chris Benoit won the title and started crying, and he couldn't help but cry as well. And God, I love that about wrestling. I've had a few of those moments as well where I look back, and I always say this. I always remember, and I know it might not be like a popular opinion, but that Sasha versus Bayley match at TakeOver and the Sami Zayn versus Neville match are the closest I've ever come to like wanting to shed a tear. That and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30 was such a feel-good moment as well. Burning Hammer, my favorite move. What got me into wrestling was Edge. I don't think you're alone there. I remember watching the Elimination Chamber match with him and Ray back then, and I thought wrestling was real. Wow, that's interesting. I thought they were the toughest guys on the planet. I was like 5. I find that really interesting. 5 years old watching Edge, you think it's real, and I don't blame you. Of course you would, because you're an impressionable 5-year-old. You don't even know like what's going on in the world. Tyler Trivett says, my cousin showed me WWE 13 and I love CM Punk and then continued to watch, and my love of wrestling never stopped growing. Great. Another video game one. I think that's probably a common theme given like who watches me. Ravarius. Years ago, 2 of my friends were watching WWE on Ready TV, which is a channel in Brazil, he says. I sit and watch with them. After that, I started to buy games and learn more about pro wrestling. And here I am. Pro wrestling is my life. That's awesome. I think a lot of people get introduced by their family and friends and that sort of thing who obviously know better. Unknown Prodigy. He says The Undertaker, when he came back in 2011, I was like really young. So all the videos leading up to him returning scared me, but I was instantly hooked to him. And the Raw when Triple H came back too. He was like, yeah, I'm going to watch this forever. So like you're talking like the legends. And not a wonder, like when you think about it, that WWE bring these guys back. Because they are literally like the reason a lot of people even started watching. That's why wrestling got to such a height, is because these guys were just absolutely phenomenal. Zephyr, he says, my family have always been into wrestling, and my first distinct memory was Survivor Series 2009. So I would have been around 6. Man, you guys are so much younger than me. And I remember the Michaels versus Cena versus Triple H triple threat. That sweet chin music to Triple H immediately had me hooked. I love it, man. These legends, and they've been around for so long, just doing so well, that like it's hard not to love it. Wyatt says, irony. First, I was watching it as a meme, but then I got invested. Damn, dude. So you obviously thought wrestling like was a little bit of a joke. Didn't really think much of it. Didn't really take it seriously. And now you're all over it, see? All it takes sometimes is somebody to just sit down and take the time to learn something, and you might actually enjoy it. Jackum01, I'll say. I think I started watching it in 2010, but my dad showed me some stuff from the Attitude Era, and I became obsessed. I know my brother is showing his son some stuff from the Attitude Era, so I reckon my nephew might get obsessed when he's a little bit older as well. Byronite says, no joke, it was the It's Still Real to Me Damn It video that got me into wrestling. The dude was passionate about it, so I had to check it out. Started watching TNA during Bobby Roode's Monster Reign and was hooked. So that's interesting. You didn't start watching WWE, I'm guessing, or you may have like been watching all of it, but like you got really into that, because that era of TNA was awesome. I love wrestling because it's something I'm passionate about, good stories and more. Even when the booking isn't great, there's always something good to see. And I agree. I think we all could take a bit of that attitude with us and just say, you know, even though I don't prefer this, you know, it might actually be, worth just sitting down and just enjoying it for what it is. Max Alcock, and we'll wrap it up soon. Max Alcock said, when I was in primary school, I went round to my friend's house. He showed me all of these wrestling cards. That's interesting. That he'd been collecting. They included Cena, Michaels, Kane, Khali, just loads of them. He let me take 3. So he let you take 3, man. He's a good friend. I picked Mysterio, Edge, and Khali. I love that you picked Great Khali. It's the best. Because I was just obsessed on how big he was. Yeah, I get it. As soon as I got home, I went to the computer. Must have binge-watched WWE moments from past and future for about 7 hours straight. And he says he couldn't not watch it. I love those little things that trigger people into being like massive fans of something. It doesn't take much. Sometimes you can be like, wow, that guy looks really cool. So yeah, I love that. Wolfie, I got into WWE in March of 2010 through my brother. Same, but not 2010. It was a long time before that. Started watching SmackDown and Edge and Chris Jericho with a main event feud at that point. I credit them for getting me into wrestling. 2 Canadians getting it done. But I also credit the Nexus for keeping me into wrestling. Been a fan for about 10 years. I love it because there's truly nothing like wrestling performance done right. It's the build up to the match, and it can fill you with excitement week after week, and the payoff at the pay-per-view. There are so many ways to go about it, and it leaves you guessing. 100% agree. I think that's why majority of us absolutely love it. Preston Bishop said, I know it's not the greatest show of all time, but when I was 11 years old, my dad bought the WrestleMania 27 on DVD. The opening match was Edge versus Alberto. Hooked me, but Triple H versus Taker sealed the deal. Then later I discovered wrestling video games, WWE 12, played Universe mode for literally hours. I think we're all the same there. Theo Porty, he says, my friends were already into WWE, but for me, I was watching TNA when I was younger, around 2005. Okay, so your friends are into WWE, but you're going off a little bit and watching TNA. That's cool. First time watching WWE was Friday Night SmackDown. I fell in love with Jeff Hardy. There's another one, Jeff. He's got a lot to answer for this generation of wrestling fans. He's been a fan ever since. I'm fat, bruv. I'm guessing that's how you say it. Okay, so pretty much my family was watching Raw one night. Every time they would watch it, I would be doing something stupid because he was like 5 and it was like 2009, and it just decided, why not? So I decided to watch it, and I was mind blown. It was during the feud between Randy Orton and Triple H, and ever since then, bought the games except for WWE 2K20. Yeah, and he watches Raw and SmackDown every week. Yeah, I don't think many missed out too much if you didn't get to 2K20, but that's neither here nor there. Branko, my father really loved wrestling, so I was influenced by him. I was only 2 years old when I first saw a WWE show during the good old Ruthless Aggression days, absolutely. He says, my father died when I was very young, but he left the love for wrestling within me. And I think that is absolutely beautiful, man. I'm sorry to hear that. But the fact that your dad could give you that gift, and that you still carry that with you is amazing. That's really touching. I think that, honestly, that's a good way to leave it off. With Branko, heart goes out to your brother. And I'm so glad that, like, wrestling, again, with our friend from before, wrestling can give us so much. And that's why I wanted to do this video, is I wanted to put some love out into the world. I wanted to really, like, bring a sense of joy, because I think that's what wrestling does for me. And from reading through a few of your guys' comments, it certainly does it for you. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other subjects. Thank you so much to everybody who participated. I tried to get through as many as I could. I don't want this to go on for too long. I think that's a great place to leave it. Make sure you're looking after each other. I love you guys. I love every single one of you. And for MurphsYT13, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.